Sawadee Krap. Hello and welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha. Today is our Pali Canon in English study group where we study the words of the Buddha. I'm going to be sharing some meditation here in a moment. We're going to be doing guided breathing mindfulness meditation. And then afterwards, we can study the words of the Buddha to help you develop your life practice towards the attainment of enlightenment. If you'd like to join for a meditation, you might take a position seated on the floor or in a chair. You can also use the lying and the standing position. There's also a walking position as well. This is really good if you're not studying online, but if you're in a fixed position, like there's a camera, it's usually better to use either the seated, lying, or standing positions. If you're seated on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This will get the hips up in the air, lessening the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles. You can also put your legs off the mat as well. This will accomplish the same thing. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If you'd like to use this, you're welcome to do that. There's other options as well. You can put your palms on your thighs, on your knees. You can put your palms up. These are all options that you can use in order to meditate. Then, if you'd like to have an upper body that is nice and erect, this will keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. If you're slouched, the mind will have a tendency to be complacent or too lethargic, where if you were real rigid, the mind would have a tendency to be overactive and uptight. So by having the upper body erect, this keeps the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. I'm going to ease into meditation with some chanting, and then we'll do some guided meditation, and there'll be a period of time where we'll just be meditating together. And then we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting as well. And you're welcome to join along with the chanting, and then afterwards I'll provide the guidance to help you get deeper into your meditation. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakewa Bhutang Mahakewanhang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakewata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakewato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sambuddho Sakhato Rokavito Anuttaro Purisa Dhammasati Satatawa Manusranam Bhutto Bhagavati. The lower body and hands and arms comfortable. And the upper body erect. Just close the eyes and breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled. Just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then when you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. You can just use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathe in gradually through the nose, establishing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then when you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath. Either the sound of the breath coming into the nose, or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Just whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now, and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเกวาพุทธังมหาเกวันตังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเกวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามาสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเกวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหะเกวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสัคขะโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาธัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสรังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to make your way out of meditation. So I'll just start again by welcoming all of you guys. Sawadee-kap, welcome to Wat Tung. Those of you guys that are here at the temple and those of you guys joining us online, welcome to all of you guys. Today is what we call our Pali Canon and English study group, where we study the words of the Buddha. On Saturdays, we do this particular program, which is a 1.5-year program where students are studying volumes 2 through 13 of this book series that we have, which are the words of the Buddha, the original teachings of the Buddha. And you're encouraged to learn them, to reflect on them, independently verifying them, and then practicing them. And where you're practicing the teachings, this is where you're transforming your mind and able to awaken the mind to this enlightened mental state. And then on Sundays and Wednesdays, we have what's called the group learning program. This is a really nice program for anybody who's looking to develop a foundation in the teachings of the Buddha, because we use volume 1 of the book series, and it's a 7-month program where students walk learning the foundational teachings that are needed in order to develop their life practice to get to the enlightened mental state. And then, of course, various times throughout the year and throughout the month, we have courses and retreats that are like Monday through Friday that you guys are welcome to attend, and there are various topics. There's one coming up next week, actually, starting on Monday, which is called Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment. And this is great for somebody who's just looking to really start to study the teachings of the Buddha based on his original words to build a really nice foundation in working towards this enlightened mental state. And we meet here at 9 a.m. each day, and then we finish up at 3 p.m. each day, taking an 1.5-hour lunch break. And then on Friday, we actually go out into a field trip and we tour the various temples around, and I help you guys to learn the teachings of the Buddha through the artwork, the architecture, the symbolism, and things like this through visiting a temple. But here, Monday through Thursday, we study the teachings, and then on Friday, I invite students to this field trip. So those of you guys that are here, if this is the first time you've been here or you haven't studied the teachings of the Buddha before, it's okay. This program, the Pali Canon and English Study Group, it's usually something that people kind of move into after they've developed a foundation. But I'll walk you guys through and helping you guys to understand how we conduct our class and helping you guys to learn, even if this is your first time ever learning the teachings of the Buddha. But before I get started with that, I would like to just talk a little bit about the meditation that we just did together to help you guys understand the purpose of this meditation. This meditation is called breathing mindfulness meditation. This is a primary form of meditation that the Buddha used in order to train his mind to get to the enlightened mental state. There's other things you need besides meditation in order to get to enlightenment. One of the biggest myths about the Buddha's lifetime is people think that he sat under a tree, he meditated, and he instantly got to enlightenment. This isn't actually true. If you study his teachings, he talks about this gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. And he says very clearly that it wasn't instantaneous that he got to enlightenment. But unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation in the world about his life. And this is one of those things that some people just think all you need to do is meditate. But in reality, you need to learn a lot of other things in order to train the mind to get to this enlightened mental state. But nonetheless, meditation is very important. So while you wouldn't be able to meditate your way to enlightenment, you wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment without meditation either. You would need it as part of your practice. This particular meditation, called breathing mindfulness meditation, you're developing mindfulness or awareness of mind, having awareness of what's going on in the mind, whether there's wholesome things in there that you need to support and encourage, whether there's unwholesome things in your mind that you need to eliminate. Because in order to get to enlightenment, you're purifying your mind, eliminating certain unwholesome qualities and encouraging and supporting and further developing certain wholesome qualities that are. You're also developing concentration. By focusing on the breath, you're developing this focus and concentration. And you're also working to eliminate and let go. Oftentimes people think the goal of this meditation is to eliminate your thoughts, but you're not actually working to eliminate your thoughts. You're training the mind to let go. One of the things that you learn as a beginning foundational teaching of the Buddha is that the mind is causing its own discontent feelings. So all the anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, boredom, loneliness, shyness, resentment, jealousy, even the displeasure that's in the mind, this is all being caused by the mind itself. Oftentimes we think that other people are causing us to be angry or other people are annoying you. This isn't actually true. This is part of the unknowing of true reality that the unenlightened mind has, that it blames its feelings and emotions on other people rather than recognizing and seeing the truth that your mind is causing these feelings itself. So the teachings of the Buddha will help you to be able to see this, but you don't believe what he shares. He helps you to learn the teachings. You then independently reflect on those teachings to verify them, and then you practice them and train your mind. And as you're training your mind, you see that the mind becomes more and more peaceful and more joyful as it gets to this enlightened mental state where you no longer experience any discontent feelings. All the anger, sadness, frustration, and other discontent feelings are completely eliminated from the enlightened mind. The mind is focused, concentrated. You have clarity of mind and deep memory. Your personal and professional relationships will blossom because there's no longer this bitterness and hostility in the mind. You'll notice that by the time you get to enlightenment, you're not even in a bad mood anymore. You're never in a bad mood ever because you've eliminated the conditions that are causing the mind to experience a bad mood. You're eliminating certain pollutions of the mind that the Buddha discovered. So in order to accomplish that, you need this mindfulness or awareness of mind, and you need the concentration that you're developing in meditation. It's like exercising the mind. And then you, in daily life, now practice this awareness of mind and concentration in your daily life. And then when your mind is having what's called craving, desire, attachment, this longing and yearning, chasing after the objects of your affection, you can let go. Because what's going to happen is you'll see certain things that you agree with, and you'll get pleasant feelings based on some condition. There's some condition that'll exist in terms of maybe your bank account is a certain balance, or it's sunny outside, or your mom or your friend or your brother or your sister calls you today and you get so excited about this because of this condition. There's a certain condition that is causing the mind to be happy or excited or elated. This is called a conditional pleasant feeling. And now when those things don't happen, then the mind moves to these painful feelings like sadness, anger, frustration, and others. So in the unenlightened state, you might wake up and see that it's sunny outside and get so excited because you can go outside, you can go hiking, you can go outside and play with your friends. But then when you go take a shower and you come back and you see it's raining outside, now you might be frustrated or irritated or angry because you based your inner feeling of happiness on the condition of the sun. And now, because the sun is not permanent, your happiness is not permanent. Your mind now moves to the sadness, anger, or frustration. So when you can train your mind to let go in meditation, you can do the same thing in daily life, that with your mindfulness or awareness of mind, as you see certain things, like for example, if an enlightened being wakes up in the morning, they're already joyful. Before they even know that it's sunny outside, they already have joy in their mind. And now they see it's sunny outside. All right, great. They're going to go hiking with their friends or go outside and play. Well, now they go take a shower and they come back and it's raining. It's like, all right, well, it's raining. Maybe I'll go to the mall. Maybe I'll invite my friends over for dinner. Maybe I'll stay home and read a book. There's other things you can do. But because an enlightened being isn't basing their inner feelings on some condition, that means their feelings of joy and peacefulness and happiness, it's permanent. Where in the unenlightened state, the mind goes up and down and up and down. There's these pleasant feelings, and then there's these painful feelings, and then there's neither painful nor pleasant feelings. So the meditation of breathing mindfulness meditation, you're developing certain qualities in the mind that you can then practice in daily life to then train your mind, not only in meditation, training your mind, but in daily life too, so that you can have this awareness of the mind and this concentration, this focus. And then as things are happening in your life and you notice some anger arising or some frustration arising, you can cut it off and let it go if you've trained your mind in meditation to be able to do that. And eventually you get to the point where you've trained your mind so closely in meditation as well as in daily life that the conditions that cause anger and frustration and other discontent feelings to arise, they no longer exist in the mind. So that anger and frustration no longer is there. It never arises. But as your mind is transitioning to enlightenment, you're going to have certain feelings and emotions like anger and sadness and frustration that are arising, but you can cut those off and let them go, not allowing the mind to form conditioned feelings. So essentially what you're doing on the path to enlightenment is you're essentially rewiring the mind so that it no longer forms conditional feelings, that you can get to these unconditioned mental qualities of peace, calm, serenity, contentedness with joy, and that the mind will no longer need to have these struggles and difficulties that it experiences in life. And you do this through exercising the mind in meditation, yes, but then you also need to practice the teachings in daily life. There's a certain amount of learning of the words of the Buddha. It's not just meditation. You need to learn other aspects of your practice, other tools and techniques, other wisdom that the Buddha is sharing with you. Essentially what the Buddha did is he discovered what's called the natural laws of existence. These natural laws are helping you to understand how the mind functions and how the world around you functions. And that's why you don't believe, and then hope something good happens when you die. Instead, you're learning his teachings now. You're reflecting on his teachings now to independently verify them, and then you're practicing them now in order to transform your mind. So you see the results now in this life with the mind becoming more peaceful and more joyful. Because when you don't have an understanding of the natural laws of existence, the mind will struggle, it will have difficulties, and the mind will make unwise decisions that lead to unwholesome results. But when you gain wisdom of these natural laws, you will naturally make wiser decisions that lead to more wholesome results in your life. So this is everything that I'm going to share here about meditation, unless you guys have questions. Those of you guys here at the temple, if you guys have questions you would like to ask about the meditation or anything else about the path to enlightenment, you're welcome to ask those questions. I have microphones here in the bowl that if you guys could use those, there's a little gray button. You just turn it on. That way the people online can hear your question, and you don't have to be afraid of talking on the microphone. It's okay. It won't bite you or anything like that. And then for those of you guys online, if you're in Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom, you can put your question in the comment section, or in Zoom, you can raise your hand electronically. I'll see your interest to ask a question, and I can answer it for you. So do any of you guys have any questions here at the temple or anybody online? Okay, let me see if there's anybody online that has a question. Okay, so since I'm not seeing any questions, what we'll do then is just transition over to, oh, you have a question? Can you use the microphone right there? That way the people online will be able to hear you.
What did Sakya Muni see when he got to his enlightenment? What did he see?
You mean the Buddha?
Yes, the Buddha.
Okay. What was he looking for? Is that what you said? What does he seek?
No. What did he see when he got to his enlightenment?
Oh, what did he see? Okay, so gradually over a period of 6 years, he gained wisdom of how to awaken the mind to this enlightened mental state where the mind's peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. He started to understand how the mind functioned and these natural laws. So let me give you an analogy to help you understand. When we all were born, we were affected by the natural law of gravity. Whether we were aware of these natural law or not, this natural law of gravity, we were affected by it. We fell down, we hit our head, we busted our knee, we busted our elbow, we knocked over glasses and vases and broke things, we broke our toys. And we really struggled in life because we were unaware of the natural law of gravity. So we struggled and had difficulties. But slowly but surely, we learned, we reflected, independently verified that yes, there's this thing called gravity, and we practiced and we got better and better at understanding this natural law and how to make wise decisions that produced wholesome results. So we learned to tie our shoes. We learned to look at the surface of the sidewalk as we were walking. We learned how to ride a bike and climb a ladder and get on airplanes and all these different things. So slowly we awoke to the wisdom of the natural law of gravity, because when we were unawake to this wisdom, we made unwise decisions that produced unwholesome results in our life, and we struggled and our mind had difficulties. So the same thing is occurring with all these other natural laws that the Buddha discovered. He discovered these natural laws, and then when you awake to these natural laws through learning, through reflecting, independently verify, and practice, you can actually train your mind to get to the point where it doesn't struggle and have difficulties in the world. So he discovered these 10 individual pollutions that are in the mind, and that when you use the tools and the techniques that he shares in order to eliminate these pollutions, one of them being what we call ignorance or unknowing of true reality, this confusion or misunderstanding about the world and the natural laws of existence. When you awaken to these natural laws, then your mind can be trained to the point where it's peaceful and joyful permanently. One of the first things you learn on the path to enlightenment is how the mind is causing its own anger and frustration. That it's craving, desire, attachment. It's the mind longing, yearning. The mind wants permanence, but yet everything around you is impermanent. So one of the natural laws that the Buddha taught, or a universal truth, is the universal truth of impermanence, that everything around you is impermanent. Your body, your relationships, your bank account, your car, your motorbike, your everything around you, your job, the weather is impermanent. But the problem is that the mind is craving this permanence. It's longing, it's yearning, it's wanting things to be permanent. And then when it doesn't get what it wants, it gets angry and frustrated and irritated. So if the mind gets, for example, a simple example is the sun. If the mind gets its craving, which is the sun, then it feels happy and excited. But then when it doesn't get what it wants, it gets the painful feelings like frustration. Or say, for example, if you really want a boyfriend or a girlfriend, you might get really excited and happy and have pleasant feelings when you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. But then when you break up, you get maybe angry or frustrated or sad. This is because the mind's craving permanence and wanting things to be permanent. Another example might be if you get a brand new car and you get all these pleasant feelings that you got this brand new car, but then you park it at a store, you go inside and you come out and you see a scratch on the car. You might get angry and frustrated because the mind's craving for this car to look permanently beautiful, but it's not possible for this car to look permanently beautiful. So the Buddha didn't create a bunch of rules or commandments or rites or rituals or ceremonies or worship. He didn't create a religion. What he provided was guidance of how to train your mind to get to this peaceful and joyful mental state, because he awoke to the wisdom of how to accomplish that for himself. And then he was able to share it with others to be able to then help you to experience that same mental state if you choose. Mm-hmm. Yes, you're welcome. We have another question here.
Yes, I was wondering, when we are going into the state of meditation, is it good that we play some background music? Would that help?
I don't suggest to use music or any kind of external device as part of your meditation, because what you're trying to do is train the mind to let go. And what the mind's going to want to do is it's going to want to hold on. So when you're in meditation, if you have music playing, the mind is just holding on to the music and wanting to hold on to that. And what you're trying to do is trying to train the mind to let go, that it can be peaceful and joyful no matter what is going on in the world, that your mind isn't attached to having things a certain way. So there's only 3 things that you actually need to meditate. It's the body, the mind, and the breath. These are the only 3 things. And you'll have all 3 of these until the end of this life, right? The body, the mind, and the breath. Whereas if we attach the mind to music or candles or incense or certain beads or anything like this, then that means your mind can only meditate when you have those things. And you're not going to have those things permanently because of the universal truth of impermanence. So if you train your mind and you strip away anything that you might be using besides the body, the mind, and the breath, and of course you'll occasionally use a meditation cushion or some other place. You might use a blanket every once in a while, but nonetheless, you'd like to get to the point where it's the body, the mind, and the breath, and then your mind can meditate anywhere at any time. And this is one of the things you do as you're building up your meditation practice, is you move the mind around in different locations. So maybe you meditate at the temple sometimes, you meditate at your house, you meditate at the park, you meditate in the forest, you can meditate at different places and train the mind that it's not going to get permanence. Because what the mind wants to do is it wants to hold on to things. I can only meditate if I have my music. I can only meditate if I'm at my house and I have that special cushion and I have that special blanket or whatever it is. But you were trying to show the mind like, no. You're not going to get permanence. It's not possible for you to get permanence. So by moving the mind around in different settings, it introduces impermanence to the mind, and now the mind has to find its stability and its calmness and joy despite all this impermanence it's experiencing.
So I've seen people who can meditate in a loud, noisy surroundings. Mm-hmm. I was wondering, before I always think that meditation, I need to have the absolute quietness, but it doesn't seem so, right?
Right. So the mind, if it wants quietness and craves quietness, it's not going to be able to get that permanently. So the mind is just being trained to crave this thing that it can't actually get. It's kind of like the mind is chasing after the objects of its affection, and it can only experience happiness if it gets what it wants, but it can't get what it wants permanently. So what you would like to do is put the mind in situations where it doesn't get what it wants, and it has to maintain its calmness and stability and peacefulness regardless. So I've seen people on a boat sitting on the engine compartment where the boat is packed with people and it's rocking side to side and there's people talking and the engine compartment is rumbling and you're sitting there trying to meditate, right? So you can put the mind in these situations. You're not interested in doing that right at the beginning of your developing of your meditation practice, but as you get going with meditation, you would like to introduce various impermanence, various variables like this to train the mind to overcome the longing, yearning for something specific. So maybe for like 4 to 8 weeks, you kind of like maybe at home in an environment where you're comfortable, you're kind of starting out your meditation practice and you start building it. But then after 4 to 6 weeks, 8 weeks, as you're starting to see some stability come into the mind, you'd like to maybe move to the dining room or to the living room and kind of like mix it up a little bit. If you've been meditating in your room and now you do that for a little while, and then maybe you move outside and now you maybe move to a park. Now you try some different temples, meditate around in different temples. So you can introduce various variables like this. And you'll notice that the mind feels better when it's meditating at home because your mind is craving and holding on to that. But that's exactly why you need to put the mind in a different position, a different situation that it doesn't like, because now it's going to have to gain its peacefulness and joy and its stability in this situation where the variables aren't what it typically experiences. And this is really healthy for the mind, where what the mind wants to do is just hold on and only meditate in this one location. You're trying to train the mind, no. You can meditate no matter where you are, whether you're in an airplane, an airport, in a park, any of these different settings. Mm-hmm. Yes, you're welcome. Any other questions here? Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I want to know if you can see the glow on us. Because everyone has different color of glow, right? Can you see it? Just like Buddha, he has beautiful light yellow glow, right? Mm-hmm. And everyone has glow too, but we cannot see it. Most of us cannot see it. Just a few people can see it. Can you see it?
You're talking about an aura, right? An aura around someone?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't have the ability to see that around people. Okay. The Buddha, we draw this around the Buddha because there are some people who are able to see auras, but that's not part of the goal of the path to enlightenment. As you train your mind to get to enlightenment and you eliminate pollutions from your mind, there's, of course, by the time you get to enlightenment, the mind's peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. The mind doesn't experience any discontent feelings. So there's no anger, frustration, irritation, all those feelings that I mentioned, all those discontent feelings, even the slightest displeasure is eliminated from the mind. There's focus, concentration, clarity of mind, deep memory. This is the ultimate goal of the path to enlightenment. But there's other special abilities that one can experience along the way. Like one of them is seeing auras. One of them is seeing past lives, either your own past lives or other people's past lives. One is having omniscience or psychic abilities to be able to see the future. And different people have these different abilities as you get closer and closer to enlightenment, but that's not the ultimate goal of enlightenment. But the Buddha does make you aware of these things, and you can experience them potentially as you're making your way to enlightenment. But you're not interested in clinging to any of these special abilities and holding on to them or making yourself think that you're special with some kind of conceits or arrogance or pride or boastfulness. Instead, you need to remain humble even when these special abilities are being experienced. And ultimately, what you might experience is you might have these certain special abilities come into the mind and you start experiencing them, and then they might actually fade away as you make your way to enlightenment. And the ultimate goal is to get to this enlightened mental state. And the Buddha talks about this in his teachings as well, where he talks about these special abilities and how that's not the goal of the path to enlightenment. It's to actually liberate the mind, get to this freedom from the strong feelings, to the peace and to the joy. Yes.
More. I want to know, have you heard of saying that the earth is actually a prison?
The earth is an actual person?
A prison.
Prison?
A prison, yes, because after you die, maybe your soul cannot get out of this earth, cannot get out of this planet. Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard of this?
So the Buddha didn't teach whether there is a soul or there isn't a soul. He left this as an undeclared teaching. He didn't declare that there is a soul. He didn't declare that there isn't one. But he did describe the lower realms of existence as a prison. He describes the hell realm and the realm of the animal realm like a prison, because there's this cycle of rebirth where beings are constantly being reborn over and over and over again. But you can escape out of this cycle of rebirth as one gets to enlightenment. Not only is your mind peaceful and joyful permanently for the rest of this life, but you're not going to experience rebirth ever again. But if someone's born into the lower realms, it's very challenging to get out of those realms. We've all been in those realms at one point or another, but now we're in the human realm with this opportunity to get to enlightenment. So I don't think of the entire world as a prison. I think of definitely the lower realms that way, because if you understand about those lower realms of existence, it's very challenging for like an animal to get out of that animal existence, but eventually it will. It just takes a number of countless rebirths before one gets to a human existence or a heavenly existence, where in these existences you can actually train your mind and get to enlightenment, where in the lower realms there's no ability to get to enlightenment from those existences. Yeah, you're welcome. Question?
Meditation session. I'm really a beginner of meditation, and this time I realized at first of the meditation session I could let things go away, go away, but in the middle and in the end I struggled to do it. So I would like to know if there is any recommendation how long I should do meditation or when to do it. And is it okay to do the practice before go to sleep and just fall asleep after the meditation?
Sure. Okay, so this is very common when someone's first getting started, is you'll either have a bombardment of thoughts, like lots of thoughts, or you'll have a thought, you'll indulge in that thought and follow it for a period of time, and then you'll realize like, oh yeah, I'm meditating. Let me bring my mind back. So you might indulge in that thought for a period of time. This is very common, and that's why I let people know that the goal isn't to eliminate your thoughts. Even when you're enlightened, you're going to have an occasional thought, but you can quiet the mind, you can still the mind for longer and longer periods, but then eventually you're going to have a thought, even as an enlightened being. So ultimately what you would like to do is build up your meditation practice to 2 or 3 sessions per day for 30 minutes or more per session. And this takes time. Sometimes people take 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build up to this level of frequency, because there are certain things in your life that you're doing right now that aren't necessarily beneficial, and you need to kind of start clearing those things out of your life. And it's kind of like when we were children, our parents had to constantly motivate us to brush our teeth, take a shower, things like this. And then around like 10 or 12, we started realizing like the benefit of taking a shower and brushing our teeth. And we were like, I kind of like that. I like it when my mouth tastes, nice. I like it when I smell good. And my friends kind of like it too. I think I'm going to start doing this on my own now, because you see enough benefits in it. So your mom and dad aren't going to push you to meditate. You need to have that internal motivation and encouragement and enthusiasm to do it. But as you do it for a certain period of time, you can start noticing the benefits, and then you'll have more encouragement and more motivation to do it. And as you build up to 2 or 3 sessions for 30 minutes or more, this is where you'll see the most benefit. So what you need to do in order to help your mind is just keep meditating. There's no special thing that I could tell you that says do this one thing and those thoughts won't appear anymore. But if you stay consistent with it, if you stay motivated to meditate over a consistent period of time, you'll notice that the thoughts will become less and less, and you'll experience more and more peacefulness and more joy. But you need more than just the meditation. So for example, if somebody was meditating 23 hours a day, but they went outside and they were aggressive and hostile and bitter to people for 1 hour per day, their life isn't going to be peaceful. Their mind isn't going to be peaceful. So you need more teachings besides just meditation. So combining the meditation with all the other steps on the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is the core central teaching of the Buddha. That's what you would like to ultimately learn, which meditation is part of that, but there's other steps that you need besides just meditation, and all these things are working together to be able to help you to train your mind to get to the enlightened mental state.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, any more questions here? No? Okay. So let me share with you guys what we usually do on Saturdays. And as I mentioned, this isn't where someone will typically start, but you guys can definitely learn. There's plenty of new people who come and start learning on Saturdays. This is the words of the Buddha. This is volume 9 of the book series, and we're in chapter 31 because we started this program many months ago. And what we usually do is we have a student read each chapter, and then these chapters they're fairly short. You know, this one here you can see it's just a few sentences here. And then after a student reads this, then I will share some teachings on that to help you understand further what the Buddha's teaching. Of course, the Buddha's words are very clear, very concise, very precise, but it kind of helps to have somebody guide you through to understand what he's teaching you. And then after a student reads, after I share some teachings on that, and then I'll open up to any questions here and online that you guys might have about that specific chapter. And then we move on to the next chapter. And in this way, you can gradually learn the teachings of the Buddha. So what you have here in these books, and they're free, by the way, you can download them for free. You can take them and go print them if you like. If you would like printed copies, we have them here at the temple that you just reimburse us for our printing cost. Or if you have access to Amazon, you can order them on Amazon. They're there as well. But what you have here is you have the words of the Buddha, then you have a reference back to the original source teachings. The Buddha's teachings are in what's called the Pali Canon. There are 45 books that are about this thick, each one of them. So that's about, 5 inches, 6 inches thick, or maybe 10 centimeters thick, and there's 45 volumes of them. This particular book series consolidates it into a manageable, digestible series that you can then learn, but you might be interested to go back to the original, which is here, the reference. This is showing you where the original is so that you can see what was the Buddha talking about before this and what was he talking about after it. Then you've got words from me to be able to help you further understand and just guiding you and helping you understand how to reflect on this particular teaching and even how to implement it into your daily life. So you have access to these to be able to learn. So what we do is students will typically be learning these on their own, and then they come to class as a study group to be able to learn. And then what you'll see on Sundays and Wednesdays and in other courses and retreats that I teach, it's more of a traditional style of learning where I'm teaching and teaching and teaching for 20, 30 minutes and then opening up to questions from you guys. But here in the Pali Canon and English study group, we do it more as a study group each Saturday. So if you guys would like to participate in this, somebody would like to volunteer to read this. And if you guys could use the microphone, and those of you guys that are in Zoom, you guys can volunteer to read as well just by electronically raising your hand. And then we'll actually hear you here at the temple as you read. And then after somebody reads, I'll share a little bit of teachings on that to help you guys further understand it. And then I'll open up to questions. So is there someone who would like to volunteer to read this particular chapter? Your friend's volunteering you. Yeah, go ahead. Grab the mic. Go for it. Yeah, that'd be wonderful. It's a good chance to practice your English for those of you guys that are interested in practicing English.
So should I start from the top?
Sounds good.
Okay. Only with sense control that one can fulfill the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Monks save one and not give up 6 things. He cannot become one who resides in reflecting on the body as body. What 6? 1. Excitement in activity. 2. Excitement in gossip. 3. Excitement in sleep. 4. Excitement in company. 5. Being without a guard on the sense door. And 6. Immoderate in eating. Surely monks save one and not give up these 6. He cannot become one who resides in reflecting on the body as body. But one surely can if one gives up these 6.
Okay, thank you so much. So first, let me explain to you guys what the 4 foundations of mindfulness are, because what the Buddha is explaining to you is that you need to eliminate all 6 of these things in order to develop the 4 foundations of mindfulness. The 4 foundations of mindfulness are key in order to get to enlightenment. So this is why you need a teacher to kind of guide you through learning like this, because if you didn't know what the 4 foundations of mindfulness are, you wouldn't necessarily be able to understand this particular chapter. So what the 4 foundations of mindfulness are is when you first develop mindfulness, it's part of the Eightfold Path, the core central teachings of the Buddha. You need to develop what's called right mindfulness. And you use breathing mindfulness meditation in order to help you develop this mindfulness. And mindfulness in general is referred to as awareness of mind. You need that awareness of mind. But more specifically, what you're looking to develop as part of your life practice is what's called the 4 foundations of mindfulness. These are the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. These are 4 things that you need awareness of in order to be able to train the mind. The Buddha is explaining to you that before your mind becomes discontent, there's going to be some bodily sensations that you experience. If you can be aware, or if you maybe think about certain situations you've been in where the mind's gotten angry or frustrated, there were some bodily sensations that were occurring first. There was the tingling in the body. Maybe there was some tightening in the chest or around the heart. Maybe there was some tightening in the throat. Maybe you had some heat in the face. Maybe you had pressure in the skull or something like this. These are bodily sensations associated with anger or frustration or some other feeling like that. Or maybe if you were shy, some people feel queasiness in their stomach when they feel shyness, right? This is the bodily sensations that you experience prior to the mind becoming discontent. So if the mind experiences these bodily sensations where you can be aware of the bodily sensations, you can cut off any discontentedness there. The bodily sensations are kind of like an early warning system, helping you to understand that your mind is about to become discontent. You're about to experience a conditioned feeling, and you can cut it off and let it go there. So that's the first foundation, is having awareness of the bodily sensations, which you develop over time through your meditation practice and in daily life. Then if you miss it there, if you don't cut it off as a bodily sensation, it then becomes a feeling. This is the second foundation of mindfulness. You need the awareness of the feelings that are occurring in the mind. If you don't cut it off and let it go there as either a conditioned pleasant feeling, painful feeling, or neither painful nor pleasant, it starts affecting the condition of the mind. Have you ever been angry for like a few days or a few hours or like a week or two? Of course you have, right? Everybody has. You've been agitated or irritated for a period of time, right? And this is because you did 4 foundations of mindfulness. You didn't have awareness of the bodily sensations and cut it off there. So it became a feeling. And then as it became a feeling, it started affecting the condition of the mind more long term for a few hours, a few days, or maybe a week or so, right? And then what happens is it forms what's called a mental object. The mental objects are deeply rooted containers that are in the mind. These deeply rooted containers are things like ill will, for example, in this particular example, where the mind has this ill will in the mind, this anger, this animosity, this bitterness that comes up in the mind. So say that somebody wants something to be a certain way. And if they get those things, that craving, desire, attachment, they get pleasant feelings. But if they don't get what they want, they get these painful feelings. And prior to these conditioned feelings, there's going to be some bodily sensation. Then it's going to become a feeling in the mind. Then it's going to affect the condition of the mind. Then it's going to form and fill this mental object. And in this example of anger, that mental object is called ill will, this deeply rooted container in the mind. So in order to get to enlightenment, you need to have awareness of these 4 foundations. And it takes time to develop this in your practice. And that's why you're meditating, and that's why you're also practicing in daily life to become aware of these 4 foundations. So here what the Buddha is saying is that in order to develop this ability to reflect on body as body, which is to have awareness of these bodily sensations, you need to eliminate these 6, that you can't save one and not give up the other 6, right? If you have just one of these, then your mind isn't going to be able to experience the ability to be aware of these bodily sensations. So excitement and activity. What this is conditional excitement. By the time you get to enlightenment, you have unconditioned joy. You have unconditioned happiness. In the unenlightened state, the mind can only be happy if this condition is met, and this condition is met, this condition is met, right? If it's sunny outside, if my bank account is this, if my mom calls me, if I eat this particular type of food, then I'll be happy, right? This is the way the unenlightened mind functions. But in the enlightened mental state, the mind is experiencing unconditioned joy, where you can just be joyful all the time, no matter what's transpiring. So if you allow the mind to get a conditioned, pleasant feeling based on some condition, that condition is not permanent. So therefore, when the condition changes, the mind will move to the painful feelings. So if you get so excited based on some activity, say for example, your mom is coming to visit you at your house, and you get so excited because this is your first apartment or your first condo, your first flat, whatever, you're so excited because mom and dad are coming to visit. Well, they call you and they tell you that they're coming to visit, and now you get, well, now maybe 3 days later, 6 days later, they call you up and they say, oh, you know what? We've had a change of plans. We can't come. We've got to go do this other thing. Well, because you allowed your mind to get so excited, now when they can't come, you're going to get sad and you're going to get frustrated. And the only thing that's happened is impermanence. That there's just been some impermanence, that your parents can't permanently do the things that they say, and neither can you, right? There's times when things need to change based on certain situations. So if you allow your mind through craving, desire, attachment, this longing, yearning to get so excited in this activity that your parents are coming to visit you, when they choose not to come for whatever reason, now you'll be sad or angry or frustrated. So you need to be able to train your mind to not have conditioned pleasant feelings based on some activity. So that way, if they come, you can be joyful and you can enjoy your time with your parents if they come. But if they don't come, you can still enjoy your day as well. But if you put all your efforts into having this excitement because they're coming, now when they don't come, you'll be frustrated and irritated. You'll walk around agitated for the rest of the day or for 2 or 3 or 4 days. And you might even be bitter and hostile with your parents, damaging your relationship. So here the Buddha is encouraging you to eliminate these conditioned feelings based on any activities. And then the same thing with gossip. Gossip or slander. If you gossip and slander about people and you get excited about this is damaging people's reputation. And now people are going to do the same thing with you. People might even injure you or try to fight you. There's people that have been murdered over gossip and slander. So what the Buddha is teaching you is not rules. He's teaching you the natural law of karma, of cause and effect, or action and result. Some people refer to it as karma, right? This natural law of cause and effect, or action and result. It's the results of your decisions. It's not punishment and rewards. It's not mystical or magical. It's not a dark cloud that's following you around. It's showing you the results of your decisions. That if you gossip and slander people and you get excited and damaging people's reputation, there's a certain amount of ill will that's in the mind. And now by you exercising that and practicing ill will, that's all going to come back to you as a result. So you would like to clean up your life practice where you don't go around and gossip and slander people. He teaches this in other parts of his teachings as well. Excitement in sleep. If you get so excited to sleep and you're holding on to sleep, there's some days where you're going to be able to maybe get 6, 8, 10 hours of sleep, whatever it is that you typically get. And there's other days where you're not going to be able to sleep that amount of time. And if you've ever woken up and felt grumpy, this is because the mind's craving sleep. You're wanting a certain amount of sleep. And if you don't get that certain amount of sleep, your mind will be grumpy or irritated or annoyed. This is the craving, desire, attachment. So if you eliminate excitement to sleep, meaning you get so excited when it's time to sleep, or when you've gotten a certain amount of sleep, you feel so excited about that. Well, again, if you allow the mind to get those conditioned pleasant feelings, when those conditions don't exist, your mind's going to experience the painful feelings. So if you get so excited when you get 8 hours of sleep, when you only get 6 hours of sleep, you'll be irritated and annoyed. So you can eliminate this by eliminating the craving, desire, attachment. And then excitement in company. This is basically like the example that I gave. I used the example during activity about mom and dad coming. This is the same thing, but activity is like all activity, right? Like say you're going whitewater rafting or you're going hiking. Here, this excitement in company is just friends or family. You get so excited when they come to visit you or when you go to visit them. So what you need to do is you need to learn how to enjoy things without having conditional feelings, that you can enjoy going to see your friends. And then when it's done and it's over. But if you have this conditional excitement when you spend time with your friends or your family, then when you're not with them, you'll miss them. You'll feel like, oh, I miss them so much. We oftentimes think this is love that's causing you to miss people, but it's not your love. What love is a genuine interest in seeing others be well. That's what love is, this active goodwill. What's causing you to miss people or miss a certain experience when you're like, oh, I miss you so much. I wish you were with me. This is the craving, desire, attachment. This is the longing and the yearning. By the time you get to enlightenment, you can spend time with people and thoroughly enjoy your time with them. But then when they're gone, it's like, all right, they're gone. This is impermanence. Your mind's not holding on. If your mind's holding on, craving permanence, when that person is gone, you'll miss them and you'll feel lonely and you'll feel bored without them. But you can liberate your mind from those feelings where you can maintain your peace and your joy, whether you're with these people or you're not. So as long as you have this excitement and company, the Buddha is sharing here that you wouldn't be able to develop the awareness of the bodily sensations, these 4 foundations of mindfulness, but I'm also sharing with you just how it causes the mind to experience discontentedness. And then being without a guard of the sense doors. What he's talking about here, this whole entire book, volume 9, it's titled The 6 Sense Spaces, and all these chapters are around the 6 sense spaces. What the 6 sense spaces are is the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body itself, and then the mind. These are called the 6 sense spaces. And what the Buddha is teaching you in other parts of his teachings is that the mind is longing and yearning, it's craving, it's desiring through these 6 sense spaces. It's wanting things to be permanent. It's wanting permanently agreeable contact. And if you get it, you get conditioned pleasant feelings. And if you don't get it, you get conditioned painful feelings. And now this is the mind going up and down and up and down. So we also refer to these 6 sense spaces as the 6 doorways to discontentedness. Because any discontentedness that you experience, it's going to come through these 6 doorways. So let me give you an example. If you see something through the eyes that you agree with, maybe a mom or dad walking down the street holding their child's hand, and you're like, oh, that's so beautiful. Look at them holding hands. That's so lovely. And you feel all these pleasant feelings as a result. You get so happy and excited of seeing this. Well, it's only a matter of time before you see something different than that you disagree with. Maybe you see a parent slap their child across the face, and now you disagree with this, and you feel so sad, and you feel so frustrated when you see this occur. So the mind is longing and yearning through the senses for permanently agreeable contact. And when you get that, you feel pleasant feelings. And when you don't get it, you get painful feelings. Let me give you another example. Through the ears. Say there's certain music that you like and you find this music really good. Maybe rap music or hard rock music, or I don't know, whatever it is that you find very interesting music, right? You pull up to a stoplight and you're in a car and the car next to you is playing that music. You're like, yeah, that's my music. Yeah, come on, let's go. Let's have fun. Let's dance. Yeah, that's really good music, right? Now you're all excited because of this music, because you're hearing something agreeable through the sense base of the ear. Well, now you go to the next stoplight and somebody else pulls up next to you with music that you don't like. You find it disagreeable. I don't know, whatever that music is that you don't like. Now you get frustrated, you get irritated and annoyed because your ear is coming in contact with a sound that you find disagreeable. And now your mind gets irritated and annoyed. Right? This is the same thing that's occurring with all your sense bases, whether it's the eyes, the ears, the nose, certain odors, certain flavors on the tongue, certain physical objects that come in contact with the body, and then there's certain mental objects. Like if you've ever been at work and you've been thinking about the past, or maybe you've been in a park, or you've been at home and you're thinking about the past, something either pleasurable or something either painful, and now in the present moment, you're experiencing discontentedness because of something that happened in the past, something that somebody said to you or something that somebody did to you. Your mind is still clinging to it and still holding on to it, and you can't let it go. So now in the present moment, you're feeling discontent. Or the same thing can occur based on the future. If you've ever been at work and you are getting ready to go on a holiday or a vacation in the next 3 months, and you get so excited about this trip. Maybe you did that when you were on your way to Thailand. If you're here visiting in Thailand, you might have got so excited many months before your trip. But in the present moment, you're longing, yearning, you're thinking about that trip, and now you're so excited. This is the sense base of the mind. So normally you learn the 5 sense bases of the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and the body. But the Buddha adds this 6th one, which is the mind, because the mind can cause itself to be discontent without any contact from anything outside. It can, within its own mind, can be thinking about things in the past or the future and cause itself to be discontent. So what the Buddha is sharing here is that you need to be with a guard of these 6 sense bases. So if you know that the mind experiences discontentedness based on these 6 sense bases, then you develop mindfulness or awareness of the mind to now guard the mind as you walk through the world. So for example, there was a period of time where I was getting rid of coffee, that I wasn't interested in drinking coffee anymore because I noticed that caffeine was making the mind overexcited and overactive, and I was interested in getting rid of coffee. So then as I was walking down the street and I would smell the coffee, it would kind of like pull me into the coffee shop because of the aroma. And I really wanted to taste this flavor of the coffee. Well, then you had to start practicing the guarding of the doorways of discontentedness. So I needed to guard the nose, sense base, so that now as you're walking down the street and you smell this aroma, you need to guard the mind and not allow it to be pulled into the coffee shop, for example, right? So this is what the Buddha is talking about, of guarding the sense doors, is guarding the mind with mindfulness or awareness of mind. And then the 6th one here, he's talking about moderation of eating. During the lifetime of the Buddha, he only ate once a day. Not everybody has to eat once a day in order to get to enlightenment, but you need to have moderation of eating. Because if you've ever done something called emotional eating, like if you've ever been sad or angry, and then you ate food in order to try to get to pleasant feelings, this is the cravings, desires, attachments. You might turn to ice cream or chocolate cake or strawberries or some other thing that your mind really, really likes the flavor of, and you're using that in order to get out of these painful feelings and get into the pleasant feelings by having this food. So by you eating in moderation and you're not gorging, then the mind can be able to get to this peaceful and joyful mental state because you're not feeding its cravings, desires, attachments. So eating in moderation would be to eat, regular sized portions. Some places you can go in the world that have these enormous portions of food. And if you ate all that food, your stomach would be really gorged with food. It will put a lot of work on the body to digest this. So what the Buddha taught is moderation in eating, and then don't emotionally eat. Don't base your eating on emotions, but base it on what the body needs in order to sustain its life. So these are the 6 things that the Buddha is saying that you need to eliminate from your practice in order to develop this mindfulness, or these 4 foundations of mindfulness: the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. Do you guys have any questions on this chapter? Yes, ma'am. If you could use the mic.
So, I'm not sure what is a monk's safe one.
He's saying monks. So he's teaching the ordained monks. He's saying save one and not give up 6 things. So he's saying like keeping one of these and not giving up all 6, you wouldn't be able to develop the awareness of the bodily sensations. So he's saying like, okay, say you've given up 5 of these things, but you're still holding on to one of them, you wouldn't be able to develop the foundation of being aware of the bodily sensations. Mm-hmm. So you need to eliminate all 6 of these from your practice in order to develop the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And there's other things besides this. You need to develop the breathing mindfulness meditation and practicing mindfulness in daily life. But these are 6 things that you would need to eliminate in addition to the training of the mind to develop the mindfulness. Okay. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Get rid of the excitement in company, because when I really like someone, right, I get excited to be with him and to meet him, right? When I leave him, when we have to leave each other for today or for 2 weeks or something, I will really miss him. How can I get rid of this excitement?
Okay, so that comes with training. So you need to do the breathing mindfulness meditation. This is helping you to eliminate craving, desire, attachment, because the reason why you're getting excited and having conditional excitement is because of craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the holding on to things, the clinging. So breathing mindfulness meditation, you're training your mind to let go. So when the mind's moving off the breath and you're bringing the mind back, you're training the mind to be disciplined. So you need that consistent, ongoing training of breathing mindfulness meditation. You also need to practice generosity. Generosity is giving and sharing more than is strictly required in any given situation without any expectation of anything in return. This is your time, your effort, your energy, and your resources. These are two generalized trainings that you do in order to train the mind to let go. Because when the mind has craving, desire, attachment, which every unenlightened mind has, it becomes kind of selfish. It holds on to things. It just wants its own selfish desires to be satisfied. So with breathing, mindfulness, meditation, and generosity, you're training your mind to gradually let go, let go, let go, let go, so you can gain more control over the mind. And then as you're doing that, you need to put the mind in the situation that it finds displeasurable. So if you have a boyfriend or girlfriend or husband, wife, or parents or whomever that are in your life, and whenever they leave for a period of time, you miss them or you feel lonely or what have you, there needs to be enough of that happening where they go away and come back and go away and come back and go away and come back, that you can train your mind in those situations to now realize, like, okay, they're gone for 2 weeks. This is impermanence. They can't be with me permanently, but also they're not going to be away from me permanently either. They're going to eventually come back, and I can have this enjoyable life and I can have this peaceful life even when they're not with me. That's okay. So there needs to be this consistent ongoing training with breathing, mindfulness, meditation, and generosity. And then the mind needs to experience enough of people going away and coming back and going away and coming back. And maybe even you going away by yourself on holiday, or going to the park, or going to the movies, or going out to dinner alone, and building a life where you're comfortable being alone. Because sometimes in the unenlightened state, people don't even enjoy being alone with themselves. And if you enjoy being alone with yourself, other people will enjoy being with you, right? So you need to gradually train the mind this way over a consistent long-term period. It's not just a quick fix of do this one thing and then it's going to fix this problem. It's a totality of these things coming together that's going to help you. So these are the things that you would need to do to train the mind to let go. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're welcome. What you'll need to learn is the Eightfold Path. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha, because you're going to learn the meditation with that. You're going to learn about generosity. You're also going to learn that when unwholesome qualities come up in the mind, you cut them off and let them go. So like, say, if you've been doing breathing, mindfulness, meditation, and generosity for a consistent long-term period, and now say your friend comes to you, or your parents or your boyfriend or girlfriend, and say, hey, I'm going on a business trip. I'm not going to be here for the next 2 weeks. And right away you feel this sense of loneliness emerging in the mind. You can cut that off and let it go in the moment. And if you do these things enough times in your daily life, you can eventually get to the point where you won't experience that loneliness, or that you miss them, or something like this. So there's multiple teachings that you need to put together. And that's why building a foundation is so important. And that's that core central teaching of the Eightfold Path that you would need to learn. So this book, chapter 4 and 5, have that teaching in there. And then there's videos that I've done, there's podcasts, there's courses, like the course next week that I'm teaching. I'm going to be teaching the Eightfold Path on Tuesday. So there's plenty of opportunity for you to learn this if you would like to learn it. But it's not just a matter of me telling you something in 5 minutes that's going to fix this. You're going to need to learn a totality of teachings and multiple teachings to be able to train the mind to no longer have these cravings, desires, attachments. Mm-hmm. Okay, would somebody like to read the next one, chapter 32? Yeah, go for it.
Taints to be abandoned by restraining. What taints monk should be abandoned by restraining? Here a monk, reflecting wisely, resides with the eye sense-based restraint, the ear sense-based restraint, the nose sense-based restraint, the tongue sense-based restraint, the body sense-based restraint, the mind sense-based restraint. While taints, frustrations, and unrest, anxiety might arise in one who resides with the eye sense-based unrestrained, the ear sense-based unrestrained, the nose sense-based unrestrained, the tongue sense-based unrestrained, the body sense-based unrestrained, the mind sense-based unrestrained. There are no taints, frustration, or unrest, anxiety in one who resides with the sense-based restraint. These are called the taints that should be abandoned by restraining.
Okay, thank you. So what the Buddha is referring to here is taints. These are the 10 fetters or the 10 pollutions or the 10 taints. These are the 10 individual problems that he discovered in the unenlightened mind. And what you're doing on the path to enlightenment is you're working to eliminate these 10 fetters. By eliminating these 10 fetters, this is what's going to produce the enlightened mind. So here he's talking about what do you need to do, what taints need to be eliminated through restraining the mind. And the main taint that he's talking about here is the central desire. This is one of the taints or one of the pollutions that he's referring to here, that it's the 6 sense spaces, the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, the body, and the mind, that as you see the mind longing and yearning, craving, desiring, attaching, you restrain the mind and pull it back. So let me give you an example. Say you're in the mall and you have a craving, desire, attachment for shoes, and you just always like buying shoes. And every time you get a pair of shoes, you get so excited about these new shoes. And maybe you have 30 or 40 or 50 pairs of shoes at home. And each pair of shoes is just like one more pair of shoes, one more pair of shoes. And you get so excited. So now you're walking in the mall and you see this new pair of shoes in the store display. And you're like, oh my goodness, new pair of shoes. Yes, 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 yes. I want those new pair of shoes. And you see your mind longing and yearning for it. What the Buddha is teaching you is to restrain the mind. Pull the mind back. You can cut that off and let it go. You can restrain the mind. And that's how you ultimately eliminate the central desire or the craving, desire, attachment through the sense bases. And here he's just explaining to you a little bit about that. He explains it in more detail in other parts of his teaching, but here this is just one particular part where he's explaining it to you. So do you guys have any questions on this one? No? Okay. So let's move to the next one. Let's see. Here I have all the 10 fetters listed for you guys. This is number 33. Taints to be abandoned by removing. Is there someone who would like to read this? Mm-hmm.
Taints to be abandoned by removing. What taints monks should be abandoned by removing? Here a monk, reflecting wisely, does not tolerate an arising thought of sensual desire. He abandons it, removes it, does away with it, and obliterates it. He does not tolerate an arising thought of ill will, thoughts of cruelty, evil unwholesome states. He abandons them, removes them, does away with them, and obliterates them. While taints, frustration, and unrest anxiety might arise in one who does not remove these thoughts, there are no taints, frustration, and unrest anxiety in one who removes them. These are called the taints that should be abandoned by removing.
Okay, thank you, sir. So here, the Buddha is referring to these 10 fetters again, and there's certain fetters that you need to remove. So the sensual desire, the mind needs to be restrained in order to eliminate this sensual desire, but then you also need to abandon or eliminate or remove these particular taints. And one of the good examples here is ill will, that if you have sensual desire, enlightened mind's going to have a certain amount of that if they're in the, if they're not enlightened, or if they're in the first or second stage of enlightenment, they're going to still have sensual desire. So if the mind gets what it wants, it gets pleasant feelings. If it doesn't get what it wants, it gets painful feelings. And that's where the ill will can arise. There can be bitterness, harshness, hostility, aggression towards others. This is the ill will. And that needs to be uprooted and completely eliminated from the mind. You use loving kindness meditation and practice of loving kindness in order to train the mind to be able to eliminate the ill will. And this is the Buddha explaining to you that if you eliminate these things, that you won't experience frustration or unrest or anxiety. This is saying, if there's no taints, if there's no pollutions, if there's no fetters, then you're not going to experience these discontent feelings. Any questions here? Yes, sir.
Between the removing and the restraining?
Yeah, so in order to remove a particular taint, you oftentimes need to restrain the mind first. So what you do is you distance the mind from a particular craving, desire, attachment, and then you uproot it out of the mind. These are the two steps that the Buddha talks about. So it's not that you're only restraining or you're only removing, because you need to remove all the 10 fetters. Every single one of them need to be eliminated. But you need to oftentimes restrain the mind in order to actually uproot it and eliminate it. It's these two different steps. So for example, we'll use the one of the coffee that I was describing, that I needed to eliminate the coffee. I needed to first restrain the mind, where I needed to, when I walked past a coffee shop and the mind wanted to pull into the coffee shop, I needed to restrain the mind and pull it back, right? And then I needed to distance myself as much as I could from the coffee. This is the restraining part. And then I needed to uproot this desire for the coffee out of the mind. I needed to eliminate it. So it's the two steps here that are required in order to fully eliminate any of the particular taints. Is there's oftentimes a restraining, and then there's an uprooting or an eliminating of the actual taint itself. Got it. All right. All right, so let's see what the next one is. Let's do this next one here, chapter 34. Is there someone who would like to read this?
Benefit when taints abundant. Monks, when for among the taints that should be abundant by restraining have been abundant by restraining. When the taints that should be abundant by removing have been abundant by, then he is called a monk who resides restrained with the restraint of all the taints. He has served craving, flung off the fetters, and with the complete elimination of conceit, he has made an end of discontentedness.
Okay, perfect. So here, what the Buddha is essentially saying is, all right, when you eliminate all the 10 fetters, your mind has eliminated discontentedness. You're no longer going to experience any of that anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, boredom, loneliness, shyness, resentment, jealousy, even the slightest displeasure is eliminated. The mind is in this peaceful and joyful mental state. It's through restraining the mind, and it's through eliminating or abandoning the fetters. That's what's going to produce that for you. So very straight, very simple, very straightforward. This is the way a Buddha talks. Very clear, very concise, very precise. You don't need to interpret his teachings. You don't need to figure them out. There's no like secret code that you need to break or anything like that. It's just very straightforward, explaining to you what you need to do in order to get to enlightenment. So any questions on this one? Okay, let me see what the next one is. I think this is a really long one. Okay. Yeah, this is not too long, but anyway, what I'm going to do here is we oftentimes go through 10 chapters, but depending on what the particular content is of the 10 chapters, sometimes it takes a little bit longer, a little bit shorter. I usually take a break around this time to give you guys a chance to stretch your legs, use the bathroom, get some snacks if you like. So if you guys would like to take a break and then come back afterwards in order to learn some more, I'll be here to help you guys continue to learn. If this was enough for you guys and you're like, hey, this is, met my needs for today, and you're not coming back after break, that's okay. It's up to you guys. People come and go as they please. This is all just impermanence. So if you would like to come to any of the future classes, courses, or retreats, we have those on our bulletin board. We have them on the website. As I mentioned, all those things are typically the traditional style of learning, where this particular class is more of a study group. So if you would like to join for any of those classes or courses or retreats, you're more than welcome and invited to attend. If you need help personally, you're also welcome to reach out to me personally and I'll be able to help you. So perhaps I'll see you guys after the break. We'll come back in 15 minutes from now. And then if not, then I'll perhaps see you in one of these future classes or retreats. We'll see you guys next time. All right. See you. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Looks like people are starting to come back from their break. Yeah, excellent. Yeah. If you guys would like to come back, there's some people online too that are waiting as well. So maybe what I'll do is just, would you like to read this chapter? Yes. Okay, yeah.
Okay. Dispelling the contact. Monks' consciousness can be based on two things. And how monks does consciousness come to be based on two things? Consciousness is based on the I and forms. There arises I consciousness. The I is impermanent, changing, becoming otherwise. Forms are impermanent, changing, becoming otherwise. Thus, those two things are moving and fluctuating, impermanent, changing, becoming otherwise. I consciousness is impermanent, changing, becoming otherwise. The cause and condition for the arising of I consciousness is also impermanent, changing, becoming otherwise. When monks' I consciousness has arisen based on a condition that is impermanent, how could it be permanent? The meeting, the encounter, the combining of these three things is called eye contact. Eye contact too is impermanent, changing, becoming otherwise. The cause and condition for the arising of eye contact is also impermanent, changing, becoming otherwise. When monks' eye contact has arisen based on condition that is impermanent, how could it be permanent? Contacted monks, one feels, contacted one craves, contacted one perceives. Thus, these things too are moving and fluctuating, impermanent, changing, becoming otherwise. Similar discourses were recited in the case of ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, and mind consciousness. In dependence on the ear and sounds, there arise ear consciousness. In dependence on the nose and odors, there arises nose consciousness. In dependence on the tongue and flavors, there arises tongue consciousness. In dependence on the body and physical object, there arises body consciousness. In dependence on the mind and mental object, there arises mind consciousness. The ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind are impermanent, becoming otherwise. Mental objects are impermanent, changing, becoming otherwise. Thus, two things are moving and fluctuating, impermanent, changing, becoming otherwise. Mind consciousness is impermanent, changing, becoming otherwise. The cause and condition for the arising of mind consciousness is also impermanent, changing, becoming otherwise. When monks' mind consciousness has arisen based on a condition that is impermanent, how could it be permanent? The meeting, the encounter, the combining of these three things called mind contact. Mind contact too is impermanent, changing, becoming otherwise. The cause and condition for the arising of mind contact is also impermanent, changing, becoming otherwise. When monks' mind contact has arisen based on a condition that is impermanent, how could it be permanent? contacted monks, one feels, contacted one craves, contacted one perceives. Thus, these things too are moving and fluctuating, impermanent, changing, becoming otherwise. It is in such a way, monks, that consciousness comes to the based on two things.
Okay, thank you. Yes, very good job. All right, so the Buddha is explaining to you, as I mentioned, the natural laws of existence. He's explaining to you how the mind functions in his various teachings so that then you can understand how it's functioning, so that then you can train it to do something different. Because the unenlightened mind is uncontrolled and undisciplined. So if you understand how the mind, you can understand how to train it to do something different than what it's doing based on its lack of wisdom. So here, he's describing it here, and he's described it in other places as too, that he's saying the consciousness comes to be based on two things. Essentially, how does the consciousness come to be? And he explains it in other ways and other teachings, which I think are even more clear than what you've got here. But here, what he's explaining is that there's the I, which is what we call the internal sense base, and then there's the external sense base, which in case of the eye is the forms. In the case of the ear, it's sounds. In case of the nose, it's odors. In case of the tongue, it's flavors. In case of the body, it's physical objects. And in case of the mind, it's mental objects. So there's these internal sense bases and these external sense bases. These are the two things that the consciousness is now using to get its cravings, desires, attachments fulfilled. And when you have these two things, when you have the I, and then you have a physical form, like this computer or this carpet is a physical form, then when the mind becomes aware of it, that's called I consciousness. So you have the I, which is the internal sense base. You have the external sense base, which is the physical form. Then you have the awareness of this, which is called I consciousness. The mind is now aware of the carpet or the computer. And then these three things, the I, the physical form, and then the consciousness or the awareness of it, these are called contact. So there's two things, which is the internal sense base, the external sense base. Then there's the awareness of it. This is called eye contact. And now what you're working to do is you're trying to eliminate the mind's craving and longing and yearning for this contact and having things a certain way, that the temperature in the room is always going to be 100% what you want. The fabrics that you wear on the body, or the sounds you hear, or the smells that you smell, they can't permanently be what you want. So that's what the Buddha is describing here, where he's saying, he's helping you to see that I consciousness is impermanent. He's helping you to see that none of these things are permanent, because the mind wants things through the eye, ear, nose, tongue, the body, and the mind itself to be permanently agreeable. The mind wants things to be a certain way permanently. So he's pointing out to you, it's not possible. The eye is impermanent. The physical form is impermanent. The consciousness or awareness of that physical form is impermanent. All this contact you're experiencing is impermanent. So he's helping you to awake to the wisdom that all these things are impermanent. So why continue to crave? And of course, you can understand that intellectually, but then actually doing it in practice is something very different. So you can understand this in a class like this, but then you need to remind yourself in daily life that when you're craving permanence, say, for example, you go to a restaurant for lunch tonight and they have your favorite food that you always order, and you show up and you order that food and they say, sorry, I don't have that. It's all out. If you get irritated, you get frustrated, that's because your mind's craving permanence. You're wanting that chocolate cake or that pad thai or the mango and sticky rice or whatever it is that you're eating. You want it to be permanent, and when you show up and it's not there, you'll get irritated or annoyed. So you need to remind yourself, of course the pad thai is not here. It's impermanent. Of course the mango and sticky rice is all gone, because it's impermanent. And you just need to train your mind to not crave permanence. And then maybe you order something else. Maybe you order some other food, or maybe you choose to go to another restaurant that has it. But you can maintain your contentedness. You can maintain your joy, that your joy and your happiness, your feelings aren't contingent and dependent on the sticky rice and mango, right? So you could get it at that restaurant most times, but sometimes they're not going to have it. So that means you need to maintain your calmness and composure and maybe order something else, or just politely go to another restaurant and get it over there, because it's everywhere, right? So this is how you can maintain your calmness, your composure, your contentedness, and your joy by realizing all these things are impermanent. And you're not going to be able to experience permanence through the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, the body, or the mind itself. Any questions on this one? Okay, let's go to the next one. Number 36. Is there someone who would like to read this one? She likes to volunteer people to read.
By way of right intention, monks, whatever a monk frequently think and reflects upon, that will become the disposition of his mind. If he frequently think and reflects upon thoughts of sensual desire, he has abandoned the thought of renunciation, letting go to cultivate the thoughts of sensual desire, and then his mind links to thoughts of sensual desire. If he frequently thinks and reflects upon thoughts of ill will, he has abandoned the thoughts of non-ill will to cultivate the thoughts of ill will, and then his mind links to thoughts of ill will. If he frequently thinks and reflects upon thoughts of cruelty, he has abandoned the thoughts of harmlessness to cultivate the thoughts of cruelty, and then his mind leans to thoughts of cruelty. Just as in the last month of the rainy season, in the autumn when the crops thicken, a cattle walker would guard his cows by constantly tapping and poking them on the side, and that with a stake to check and curb them. Why is that? Because he sees that he could be beaten, imprisoned, fined, or blamed if he let them stray into the crops. So too, I saw in unwholesome states danger, dishonor, and defilement, and in wholesome states the benefit of renunciation, letting go, the aspect of cleansing. As I recited thus, diligent, dedicated, and determined, a thought of renunciation, letting go, arose in me. A thought of non-ill will arose in me. A thought of harmlessness arose in me. I understood thus this thoughts of renunciation, letting go, has arisen in me. This does not lead to my own harm or to other harm or to the harm of both. Its wisdom does not cause difficulties and leads to nibbana, enlightenment. If I think and reflect upon these thoughts, even for a night, even for a day, even for a night and a day, I see night and day. I see nothing to fear from it. But with excessive thinking and reflection, I might tire my body, and when the body is tired, the mind becomes disturbed. And when the mind is disturbed, it is far from concentration. So I guided the mind internally, quieted, brought it to singleness and concentrated it. Why is that? So that the mind should not be disturbed, marked. Whatever a mind frequently think and reflects upon, that will become the disposition of his mind. If he frequently think and reflects upon thoughts of renunciation, letting go, he has abandoned the thoughts of sensual desire to cultivate the thoughts of renunciation, and his mind leans to thoughts of renunciation. If he frequently think and reflect upon thoughts of non-ill will, he has abandoned the thoughts of ill will to cultivate the thoughts of non-ill will, and then his mind leans to the thoughts of non-ill will. If he frequently think and reflects upon thoughts of harmlessness, he has abandoned the thoughts of cruelty to cultivate the thoughts of harmlessness, and then his mind leans to thoughts of harmlessness. Just as in the last months of hot season, when all the crops have been brought inside the village, a cattle walker would guard his cows while staying at the root of a tree or out in the open, since he needs only to be mindful that the cows are there, so too there was a need for me only to be mindful that those states were there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good job. Yeah, this is part of the path to enlightenment, learning vocabulary and learning words. This is great. So so the Buddha is describing right intention, because right intention is part of the core central teaching of the Buddha on the Eightfold Path, and there's three aspects to right intention. There's the intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, and the intention of harmlessness. This is the right thinking or the right thoughts. You need to develop these three aspects of the mind. What the intention of renunciation is willingness to let go, to give up, and not allow the mind to continue to cling and hold on to the unwholesome qualities of the mind, certain false beliefs that you have. Like one of the false beliefs that the mind has in the unenlightened state is that other people are causing you to be angry. This is oftentimes what you think in the unenlightened state, but you need to be willing to have an open mind to learn that that's not the truth. There are certain things that the mind's holding on to, certain central desires that it's holding on to. So the mind needs to practice a certain amount of the intention of renunciation, where you're willing to let go. And then there's the intention of non-ill will, which is the same as goodwill. You need to have the intention of goodwill, because non-ill will, it's a double negative, so this is goodwill. So you need to have the thinking or the thought, this is loving kindness, or the genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. Because as long as you have anger and bitterness and hostility in your mind towards other beings, you're not going to be able to get to enlightenment. You need to cultivate this intention of goodwill or loving kindness towards other beings, all beings in the world. And then there's the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. Because as long as you put harm out, harm is going to come back to you. So the Buddha is using this alarming analogy of cows, because during his lifetime, a lot of people were farmers. And if you weren't a farmer, you knew someone who was. So people were very familiar with farming. So he's using this as an analogy. And he's saying, okay, if you have these particular thoughts of central desire, ill will, and cruelty, and that's what you tend to think about on your day-to-day basis is central desire of ill will and cruelty, then your mind's going to lean towards those things. Much like a mind that is here, he's talking about in the last month of the rainy season in autumn, when the crops thicken, a cattle walker would guard his cows by constantly tapping and poking them on this side and that with a stick to check and curb them. If this person allows the cows to walk into the field at the end of the rainy season, the fields are very soft. And if cows start walking across the field, it's going to damage the crops. And then people aren't going to be able to eat because they're not going to have food. So as a cattle worker, you know part of your job is to ensure that your cattle don't wander into other people's crops. Nowadays, we have very well-defined land with fences and things like this, but during the lifetime of the Buddha, they didn't have a lot of those things with well-defined markers of where one land starts and another land ends. So people would oftentimes roam around with their cows and have them graze in different places. So if you were a cattle worker taking your cows from one place to the other, and your cows went into the land of another person, then you would be damaging these crops and it would cause harm to that farmer. They wouldn't be able to make money, but then people wouldn't be able to eat as well. So the Buddha is saying, okay, this person could be beaten, imprisoned, fined, or blamed if he let the cows stray into the crops. And the Buddha is saying he saw the same dangers, dishonor and defilement in these aspects of renunciation, the non-ill will and harmlessness, that when his mind was experiencing sensual desire, ill will, and cruelty, he understood that this was danger, this was dishonor. So he was then able to train his mind to eliminate sensual desire, ill will, and cruelty. And that's why it's part of the core path to his teachings. So remaining dedicated, diligent, and determined, an individual can cultivate renunciation, which is letting go, can cultivate non-ill will, which is goodwill, and can cultivate this harmlessness. And that's what it takes in order to get to enlightenment. That's what nibbana is. That's the Pali way of saying enlightenment. So the wisdom of having right intention is what leads to enlightenment. And then ultimately, he explains this same analogy. Where is it? Yeah, down here, where he says, okay, the last month of the hot season, so that's really firm, the ground is really firm, when all the crops have already been brought inside, so they've already harvested all the crops, a cattle worker would guard his cows while staying at the root of a tree or out in the open. So in this case, the cattle worker doesn't have to watch his cows so closely because the crops have been brought in and the ground's really hard. He can just sit at the root of a tree, or he can sit in the open and let his cows wander wherever they would like, because the cows aren't going to damage anything. And the same thing is true as if you get rid of your central desire, if you get rid of your get rid of your ill will and you get rid of your cruelty, you can be at ease. You can rest and relax. Whereas if your mind has central desire, ill will, and cruelty, you have to be constantly on guard, being observant of that and trying to cut it off and let it go. But as you ultimately train your mind to get to enlightenment, you can be at ease. You don't have to guard the mind like that because the mind's fully purified. That's what he's explaining, that this cattle worker can be at ease. So since he needs only to be mindful of the cows, that the cows are there, he doesn't have to be mindful to be worried about if the cows are in the certain crop or not. He said there was a need for me only to be mindful of those states were there. So he only needed to be mindful that, yes, there is the intention of renunciation. Yes, there is the intention of non-ill will. Yes, there is the intention of harmlessness in the mind. That's all you need to be aware of. You don't have to be constantly cultivating the mind. As the mind gets to enlightenment, it'll already be fully cultivated. But on the way to enlightenment, you're going to have to be like that cattle worker, constantly on guard, trying to cultivate the intention of renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. So any questions on this one? And those of you guys online, you guys can ask questions as well by putting it into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. And I'll be able to see your question here. Okay, no questions. So let's go to the next one, which is chapter 37. So someone who would like to read this? We all point to you. You got to volunteer, right? No, you. I'm pointing to you. Because you volunteer everyone else. So now your karma is coming back to you.
This is a karma.
Yeah, this is your karma. Because you volunteer everyone else. So now we're going to volunteer you.
Thank you. Okay. One who dismantles, not builds up, abandons, and not clings to the five aggregates, monks, those ascetics and the Brahmins who remember their countless past lives, all recollect the five aggregates subject to clinging or certain one among them. What five? When recollecting thus, monks, I had such form in the past. It is just form that one recollects. When recollecting, I had such a feeling in the past. It is just feeling that one recollects. When recollecting, I had such a perception in the past. It is just perception that one recollects. When recollecting, I had such volitional formations, choices, decisions in the past. It is just volitional formation that one recollects. When recollecting, I had such consciousness in the past. It is just consciousness that one recollects. And why, monks, do you call it form? It is disformed. It is deformed, monks. Therefore, it is called form. Deformed by what? Deformed by cold, deformed by heat, deformed by hunger, deformed by thirst, deformed by contact with flies, mosquitoes, wind, sun, and serpents. It is deformed, monks. Therefore, it is called form. And why, monks, do you call it feeling? It feels, monks. Therefore, it is called feeling. And what does it feel? It feels pleasure, it feels pain, it feels neither pain nor pleasure. It feels, monks, therefore, it is called feeling. And why, monks, do you call it perception? It perceives, monks, therefore it is called perception. And what does it perceive? It perceives blue, it perceives yellow, it perceives red, it perceives white, it perceives, monks, therefore it is called perception. And why, monks, do you call them volitional formations? They construct the conditioned, monks. Therefore they are called volitional formations, choices, decisions. And what is the condition that they construct? They construct conditioned form as form. They construct conditioned feelings as feelings. They construct conditioned perception as perception. They construct conditioned volitional formations as volitional formations. They construct conditioned consciousness as consciousness. They construct the conditioned monks. Therefore, they are called volitional formations, choices and decisions. And why, monks, do you call it consciousness? It recognizes, monks. Therefore, it is called consciousness. And what does it recognize? It recognizes sour, it recognizes bitter, it recognizes pungent, it recognizes sweet, it recognizes sharp, it recognizes mild, it recognizes salty, it recognizes bland. It recognizes, monks, therefore it is called conscious. Therein, monks, the instructed noble disciple reflects thus: I am now being consumed by form. In the past too, I was consumed by present form. If I were to seek excitement in future form, then in the future too, I shall be consumed by the form in the very same way that I am now being consumed by the present form. Having reflected this, thus, he becomes indifferent towards past form. He does not seek excitement in the future form, and he is practicing for distancing towards present form, for its fading away and elimination. Similar discourses were also spoken in the case of feelings, perception, volitional formation, and consciousness. The discourses then continue as following. What do you think, monks, is form permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir, is what is impermanent discontentness or contentness. Discontentness, Venerable Sir, is what is impermanent, discontentness, and subject to change, fit to be regarded thus. This is mine, this I am, this is myself? No, Venerable Sir. Similar discourses were spoken in the case of feelings, perception, volition, formation, and consciousness. The discourse then did continue as following. Therefore, monks, any kind of form whatsoever, whether past, future, or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, all consciousness should be seen as it really is with correct wisdom thus. This is not mine, this I am not, this is not myself. And I'll skip that. This is called monks, a noble disciple who dismantles and does not build up, who abandons and does not cling, who scatters and does not amass, who extinguishes and does not inflame. And what is that he dismantles and does not build up? He mishandles form and does not build it up. He dismantles feelings, perception, volitional formations, consciousness, and does not build it up. And what is it is that he abandons and does not cling to? He abandons form and does not cling to it. He abandons feeling, perception, volitional formations, consciousness, and does not cling to it. And what is it that he scatters, he does not amass? He scatters form and does not amass it. He scatters feeling, perception, volitions, formations, consciousness, and does not amass it. And what is it that he extinguishes and does not inflame? He extinguishes form and does not inflame it. He extinguishes feelings, perception, volitional formations, consciousness, and does not inflame it. Seeing this, monks, the instructed noble disciple experiences fading away of strong feelings towards form, fading away of strong feelings toward feeling, fading away of strong feelings towards perception, fading away of the strong feelings towards volitional formations, fading away of a strong feeling toward consciousness. Experience fading away of strong feelings, he becomes free of strong feelings. Through freedom from strong feelings, his mind is liberated. When it is liberated, there comes the knowledge it is liberated. He understands this joy is birth. The holy life has been lived. What had to be done has been done. There is no more for this state of being. This is called monks, a noble disciple, who neither builds up nor dismantles, but who resides having dismantled, who neither abandons nor clings, but who resides having abandoned, who neither scatters nor amasses, but who resides having scattered, who neither extinguishes nor inflames, but who resides having extinguished it. And what is it, monks? That he neither builds up nor dismantles, but resides having dismantled. He neither builds up nor dismantles form, but resides having dismantled it. He neither builds up nor dismantles feelings, perception, visualization, formations, consciousness, but resides having dismantled it. And what is it that he neither abandons nor clings to, but resides having abandoned? He neither abandons nor clings to the form, but resides having abandoned it. He neither abandons nor clings to feelings, perception, violations, and formations, consciousness, but resides having abandoned it. And what is it that he neither scatters nor amasses, but resides having scattered? He neither scatters nor amasses form, but resides having scattered it. He neither scatters nor amasses feelings, perception, volitional formations, consciousness, but resides having scattered. And what is it that he neither extinguishes nor inflames, but resides having extinguished? He neither extinguishes nor inflames form, but resides having extinguished it. It neither extinguishes nor inflames feelings, perception, volitional formations, consciousness, but resides having extinguished it. When a monk is thus liberated in mind, the heavenly beings together with Indra, Brahman, and Prajapati pay homage, respect to him from far away. Homage, respect to you. Is this singing? O thoroughbred man, homage, respect to you, O highest among men. We ourselves do not directly know, dependent upon what you meditate.
Okay, good job. Yay.
It's so long.
I think that was the longest one today. I didn't realize that when I volunteered you to read it. but it was very appropriate, right? Okay, so what the Buddha is teaching here is the five aggregates. What the five aggregates are, they're explaining to you how to determine what a living being is. So in order for you to practice like the first precept of the Buddha, where he teaches you to live compassionately for the welfare of all living beings, you need to know what a living being is. So he teaches that every living being is going to have these five aggregates. They're going to have form, feeling, perception, volitional formations, and a consciousness. What form is physical form. A living being is going to have physical form. You can reflect on this as I'm teaching it to you to see that it's the truth. Then a living being is going to have feelings. There's going to be pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant in the mind. Then there's going to be the perceptions. What a perception is your views and opinions of the world. You look out at the world in a certain way, and you have certain views and opinions of the world. Then there's volitional formations. What these are choices and decisions. Every living being is able to make choices and decisions. And then there's a consciousness, which is the mind. Okay, so you know that you have physical form, you have feelings, you have perceptions, you have volitional formations, choices, decisions, and you have a mind. And you can look at other living beings that you know to be living beings that they have all five of these things too, like a dog or a cat, a bird, a snake, things like this. But then to further independently reflect on this and see the truth, you can take something that's not a living being, like this chair or this computer. Ask yourself, does it have physical form? The answer is, yeah, it has physical form, right? There's a physical form. Does it have feelings? No, it doesn't, right? Does it have perceptions? No. Does it have choices and decisions, volitional formations? Nope. Can't choose to pick itself up and walk down the street. Does it have a consciousness? A mind? No. Doesn't have a mind, right? So there you can see that the Buddha is giving you a very clear description of how to determine whether something's a living being or it's not. It's the five aggregates that explains that. Well, because you have these five aggregates, what he teaches you is to not cling to it, not to hold on to it. Because if you hold on to these five aggregates, your mind's going to be discontent. So for example, the physical form, the body. If you have a certain youthful appearance at some point in your life and you cling to this youthful appearance, well then when you get a wrinkle or you get a gray hair or you get a little bit of fat here or there or you get a pimple or a mole in a particular place, you'll be experiencing frustration or anger, agitation. Your mind will move from this excitement that you're so youthful to now experiencing the sadness or anger, frustration. And you can go through each one of these, whether it's the forms, feelings, perceptions, the volitional formations, or the consciousness. If you cling to any of this stuff, you're going to experience discontentedness because it's constantly changing. That's what he's describing here when he talks about, he asks his students, are these five aggregates permanent or are they impermanent? These five aggregates are impermanent. They are not permanent, right? So if you understand that, then you understand to not cling to it. And that's what he's talking about when he's saying scatter and don't amass. He's saying to let go of it. That's what he's saying, is not to hold on to it and not to cling to it. And by the time he gets all the way to the end of it, he's describing what each one of these five aggregates are in his own words. And then he's making sure that you understand that they're impermanent and that if you cling to wanting permanence, then it's going to produce discontentedness. And then he says, here he's talking about, is what is impermanent discontentedness subject to change, fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself. Meaning these five aggregates here, is this who you are? Is this you? And the answer is no, this isn't you. This body is not you. Here he's starting to clue into what's called the universal truth of non-self. That in the unenlightened mind, you'll cling to this body thinking that this is you, or you'll cling to this mind thinking that this is you. So now, if you're perceived in the world through your self-image in a certain way, you will feel pleasant feelings because people are looking at you in a certain way. But when people look at you in a way that is opposite of what you want, now you'll experience the painful feelings. So for example, say like I wear all these white clothes and somebody says, oh wow, David, you look so handsome in those white clothes. Okay, wow, wow, giving me a compliment. But then it's only a matter of time before somebody says, you're so stupid for wearing those white clothes. They're going to get dirty. Why would you ever wear those white clothes? It's so stupid, right? Well, if you got all these pleasant feelings when somebody complimented your appearance, now when somebody says something degrading and disparaging, you're going to feel painful feelings. So the Buddha is teaching you that this body isn't you and this mind isn't you. And you can train your mind to reside peaceful and joyful regardless of how you are perceived in the world. Of course, you're going to make wise decisions to take care of your health and your hygiene and stuff like this. But if you cling to wanting to be perceived a certain way in the world or your self-identity, you'll open yourself up to discontent feelings. So the Buddha is teaching you here and in other places too that none of these five aggregates are you. The physical form isn't you. The feelings that you experience in the mind, that's not you. It's not who you are. So when you say like, I am angry, well, I am not angry because there's no I there. The mind is experiencing anger. That's what's truly happening, is the mind is experiencing anger. But I cannot be angry because there is no I. And by the time you get to enlightenment, it's impossible for the mind to become angry. But at this point, instead of thinking like, I am hungry, you would think like, okay, the body needs food. Or instead of, I have a headache, you might think the body hurts or the head hurts. Because if you say, I have a headache or I am hungry, now I am going to get grumpy if I don't get food. But when you let go of this I and you just realize that, okay, the body needs food, it can't permanently be comfortable. It's not possible for the body to be permanently comfortable because the body is impermanent. So the Buddha is helping you to see that this body, this feelings, these perceptions, the volitional formations, your choices, decisions, the mind itself isn't permanent. And it's not you. It's not who you are. And then as he keeps going, he's telling you, okay, don't cling to any of these five aggregates. Abandon them. Don't allow the mind to continue to cling. And ultimately what he gets to is he says, okay, if you dismantle this, if you scatter this, then you get to enlightenment. That's ultimately what he's saying here. And when he's talking about a liberated mind, when he's talking about a liberated mind, the liberation is the freedom from the strong feelings, the freedom from the anger, the sadness, the frustration, and all those other strong feelings. That's the liberation or the freedom of these strong feelings. And that's where the mind is then enlightened. And he's saying, okay, when an individual gets to enlightenment, he's saying these heavenly beings pay respect and homage to you. And he's saying, okay, you're one of the greatest human beings to exist because now your mind is enlightened. But not saying this in a conceited way or an arrogant way, not putting yourself above people. Like when you're enlightened, you don't think of yourself as above others. If you think of yourself that way, your mind's not enlightened. You still have conceit. You still have arrogance and pride and boastfulness. But the Buddha is just saying like, okay, if you get to enlightenment, this is like the very best, most wonderful thing for you and all the people around you. So that's why he's saying, okay, you're this thoroughbred of a person. And he's talking to men here. So he's saying thoroughbred of a man or the highest of men. But women can get to enlightenment as well. And he just happens to be talking to men. So that's why he's using that pronoun. Any other chapter, the five aggregates, and him going through and explaining not to cling to these five aggregates. Yes, ma'am. It's right behind you.
If my body is not I, then who am I? Where am I? I kind of, I'm lost.
That's the mind continuing to try to grasp for an I. There is no I. There is no you. There is a physical body here that we can see. And there is a mind that exists. This physical body and this mind have come together. And we call that a person. And this person was probably labeled when you were born. What's your name?
I'm Shiori. Shioni.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the label that was given to this person. So we could then make it easy for us to refer to this person and everyone would know who we're talking about. But this body nor this mind is you. But what the unenlightened mind is going to do then is say, well, what am I? Well, who am I? The mind is going to keep grasping and trying to find a you and try to find an I. But what the Buddha is explaining to you is there is no I. He says it in other places. He says there is no you. There is no I. So there is an existence. There is a being that is in existence, but this physical structures nor this mind is you. There is no you here. It's just a physical body. It's just a mind that's come together for this existence. So you need to train the mind to let go, which takes time. This is usually a teaching that you develop over time that you ultimately get to. And oftentimes people don't understand it when they first start learning about it because we've been taught all through our life that no, this is me. I need to take care of me and I need to be somebody in the world and I need to go out in the world and prove myself to everybody. And this is the challenge because if you keep thinking that way, now you put all this pressure and all this burden on yourself to go out into the world and be this person that everybody's expecting you to be. And this is a real burden to carry around and you're going to fall short of that. Or even if you get to where it is that you want to be, then your expectations change. And now you're not comfortable anymore. And you grow. You keep pushing. And then you're like happy for like a couple of weeks or a couple of months. And then your expectations grow again. And you can never be content because you're chasing this unattainable goal that just keeps moving and moving and moving. So the Buddha says there is no you. There is no I. So if you can train your mind to get to that point where you realize non-self, that there is no I, there is no me, then you can be more peaceful because you've eliminated one of the pollutions called personal existence view, where the mind falsely thinks that this body or this mind is you.
Okay, thank you. It might take some time to understand clearly, but yeah, I will keep, thinking about it.
Yeah, this one takes time. It's not something that people usually get right away when you first start learning. But like, have you ever spilled something on yourself and you felt like embarrassed when you spilled some spaghetti sauce or chocolate ice cream or something? This is because the mind has personal existence view. You're clinging to the body. You're wanting to be perceived in the world a certain way. So you got embarrassed when you had chocolate ice cream or spaghetti sauce on your clothes or something. Well, if you get rid of personal existence view, then you realize that, okay, you spilled this sauce on your clothing, but that's not you. That's not who you are. So, okay, you can still be peaceful and joyful. And somebody's like, oh, it looks like you spilled something. Yep, I sure did. Spilled something on the shirt. But you can still reside peaceful instead of being embarrassed or shy or some other discontent feeling. So you need to put together the foundational teachings of the Eightfold Path first, but then as you develop those more and more, you ultimately get to a point where you start understanding the universal truth of non-self and eliminating this personal existence view, and the mind can reside more peaceful and joyful. But it usually takes a good 10 conversations before you really understand the universal truth of non-self. Students oftentimes need to hear it and talk about it multiple times before they really truly understand it. And then actually practicing it is a whole nother piece to, the learning part, and then the reflecting to be able to see that it's true, and then the practice part to be able to actually practice it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're welcome. All right, so let's go to the next one then. Chapter 38. Someone like to read this? This one's not so long, so you should be able to read it just fine.
See as it really is. This world become ever lays by touch of sense, afflicted, utter its known grief, whatever conceit one has. Therein is instability, existence in another, bound to existence, yet in existence it rejoices. Excitement, therein is fear, and what is fear is harm. For abounding existence, this Brahma is lived. Whatsoever ascetics or Brahmins have said that by existence is released from existence, all of them are unreleased from existence, I declare. But whatsoever ascetics or Brahmins have said that by the stopping of existence there is a refuge from existence, all such are not free from existence, I declare. It is due to the foundation that is harm is produced. By the end of all grasping, this is no production of harm. Behold, these many worlds by ignorance afflicted come into existence, and thus with what has become excited, yet from existence or not released, yet all existence. Wherever and whatever state they be, all are impermanent and harm and doomed to change. In one who sees at it really is by perfect wisdom, the craving to exist is left. He joys not in its slaying, but craving's complete ending, complete stopping is Nibbana, enlightenment, thus become cool, the monk no more reborn, no more existences. Beaten is Mara, he has won the fight, escaped all future existences.
Okay, thank you, sir. So here, the Buddha is actually pointing to a bunch of different teachings all in this one teaching. So you kind of need to understand a lot of other teachings in order to understand this one. But let me just talk about a couple of them. The one that he's kind of referring to mostly here is what's called the three poisons or the three unwholesome roots or the three fires. And I'm actually going to be teaching this tomorrow on Sunday in our group learning program starting at 9 a.m. here at the temple, and then 9 p.m. As well. I teach 2 classes a day, one at the temple and then one from home, and I live stream both of these. Well, craving, anger, and ignorance, this is called the three poisons, the three unwholesome roots, or the three fires. These are the 3 primary problems that the unenlightened mind is experiencing. What craving is this longing and yearning, this chasing after the objects of your affection. If you get what you want, you get pleasant feelings. If you don't get what you want, you get painful feelings. And then part of what is arising is this anger, this hostility, this bitterness. And where this is all coming from is the ignorance that the mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. It doesn't understand the natural laws of existence. It doesn't have the wisdom to understand that it's craving and that it has this anger. So when you're cultivating wisdom, you gain this wisdom of the craving and anger and the tools and techniques of how to eliminate it. So here the Buddha is saying the world become ablazed by touch of sense afflicted. What he's saying is that the world is got this strong fire of craving, desire, attachment, this longing and yearning. Unenlightened minds are just going around chasing after selfish desires. And then he says, utters its own grief, meaning like, okay, you're causing your own grief, your own sadness, your own misery. Whatever conceit one has, there is instability. Conceit is like arrogance and boastfulness, that if you have that, then you're looking down on people, but in some cases, maybe you look so much up to people that you consider yourself below them and your mind is uncalm. You would like to get to the point where you just look at everybody as equal, that you're not higher than other people, you're not below other people, everybody's just equal. Now, other people might view you with their conceit, but it's important for you to not have conceit and just view everybody as equal. And I could go through each one of these and explain them, but the main thing that he's talking about here is these 3 poisons. Here you can see at the top he was talking about craving. Here he's talking about ignorance or this unknowing of true reality. And ultimately what you would like to get to is this wisdom, that you develop the wisdom to understand that craving, anger, and ignorance are causing the problem in the mind, these pollutions of mind. And then having eliminated this craving, where he says craving to exist is left, meaning you no longer have craving in the mind, then there's this joy that comes into the mind. Because craving has completely ended, now the mind is experiencing enlightenment or nibbana. Okay, and then from the time you get to enlightenment, then there's no more rebirth. There's no more existences beyond this one. So it's kind of like a 2-for-1 special. You do one thing, which is get to enlightenment, and you get to the peaceful, calm, serene, and content mind with joy, but you also don't have to keep coming back over and over and over again, experiencing the challenges and difficulties of existence in life, that you can escape all of that. But as long as you haven't learned certain things that you need to learn here in the world, you're going to keep coming back over and over and over again. So by cultivating wisdom, completely transforming your mind and training your mind, you can escape the despair, the grief, the misery, but you can also escape the constant rebirth as well. So any questions on this one? No? Okay. Let's see what the next one is. Next one's number 39. Let me see what this one is. This might be something that we've already kind of learned. Okay, I can just summarize this for you guys. I'm just looking at the time. So what the Buddha is describing is he's saying the title here is one who develops mindfulness of death diligently for the destruction of the taints. What he talks about here is that you need to develop the ability to understand death and that death is going to occur. Oftentimes in the unenlightened state, people fear death. They are really shaken up by this, either your own death or the death of people that are close to you. And what you would like to get to is the point where you don't fear death. An enlightened being doesn't have any fear at all, not even the fear of death. And the way that you do that is by reflecting on death. Or here the Buddhists calling it developing mindfulness of death, where you're aware that death is going to occur. Because you were born, you need to experience death. And what you do is you train your mind to confront your own death. There's ways to reflect on death. That it's not a meditation, but it's kind of an exercise. He calls it contemplating death or reflecting on death or having mindfulness or awareness of death. And what you do is you just kind of close your eyes and you just start to kind of envision your own death. You're not aspiring to die. You're not wanting to die, but you just confront death as if you've actually died, kind of like you're a fly on the wall and you're just kind of observing the process of you dying, of your funeral, of your family coming together. Maybe your family's grieving, maybe you're being buried or cremated or whatever it is, and you kind of live this out and you confront this. And now you might grieve, you might feel sorrowful, you might see all the things that your mind's clinging to and you wish that you could hold on to. But then after that session of reflecting on your death, whatever feelings arise, whatever thoughts, whatever cravings you have, you deal with that, you process it, you deal with it. And then maybe a few weeks later or a month later, you do it again. And you reflect on your own death. And you do this multiple times over multiple sessions until you get to the point where you're completely comfortable with death. You don't have any fear of it. You're not worried about it. You don't have anxiety about it. You're not sad about it or frustrated about it. You just understand that, okay, at some point this being is going to die. There's no longer going to be existence. And you don't have fear of what may or may not occur. So that's essentially what the Buddha is describing here, is to be sure that you develop this perception of your death. Any questions on this one? No? Okay, let me see what the next one is here. The supreme development of the sense bases. Let's see. This is what I've been talking about throughout today's class, where he's talking about what is agreeable arising in the mind. You have certain pleasant feelings when you have agreeable contact. And then when you have disagreeable contact, there's painful feelings. And what he's essentially saying is he's saying by the time you get to enlightenment, there's not going to be agreeable and disagreeable things. Right now, there's certain things that you find agreeable and disagreeable. Certain foods that you eat, you know that you like these foods. But if you kind of tasted a certain flavor that you don't like, you would maybe, you'd be kind of repulsed by it. This is because of craving in the mind. But you can get to a point where you train your mind that whether it's something through the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, or the mind itself, that you don't have conditioned pleasant feelings, but you also don't have those painful feelings either. You're not repulsed and push things away. So this comes through eliminating craving, desire, attachment. And the whole path to enlightenment that the Buddha shares is to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. So that's what he's describing here, is working to eliminate craving, desire, attachment so that you don't experience agreeable and disagreeable contact anymore. You can get to complete peace and joy. Any questions on this one? No? Okay. So what I'll do then is I'll just thank all of you guys here at the temple and those of you guys joining online. Thank you for choosing to learn the teachings of the Buddha. Thank you for reading. Thank you for your questions. I appreciate your participation in the class. And at the same time, I'll invite you guys back if you'd like to join for future classes or courses or retreats. You can learn about those on our website, or you can learn about them here at the temple on the bulletin board. You can ask me if you'd like to know about different courses, classes, or retreats that we have. Welcome to share that with you guys. So if I see you guys in a future class, that'd be great. If not, have a very wonderful and lovely rest of your day. We'll see you next time. Thank you for coming. Sawadee-ka. Yay. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.